Aloha everyone, and welcome to another Tinkers Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer, and in this video I'd like to share with you a wonderful discussion I had today with Philipp von Holtzendorf of Leela Quantum Tech about their newest product that was released today called the Leela Quantum Block. For those of you who are familiar with Leela products, this is the device that creates other products. So for those of you who are new to the concept of quantum energy devices, I kind of just want you to know that I broke the discussion into two parts. The very first half of our discussion really centers around what is this energy? What does it do? How is it different than other types of quantum energy devices on the market? And really wanted to dive into how, what is the validation of for the claims that are made about what it can do. And so Philipp was gracious enough to kind of walk through each one of those ideas and really explain it so that everybody who's sort of new to this idea that a simple object could contain energy and could also emit frequencies that could be positive for your health and well-being. It's kind of a different concept that a lot of people are not used to. So this discussion, the first half, really sort of lays the foundation to kind of understand, what these products are all about and what they can do and how they can help you. Now the second half is really just kind of a user's instruction on, okay, if you had a quantum block, what would you do with it and how would you use it and how would you create other devices from it and that sort of thing. And then of course we covered what do you do when you've got other devices you've already purchased and from different types of vendors and different types of items, like everything from crystals to tensor coils, and that sort of thing. And what would you do if you already had those items, and how could you enhance them and how could you actually make them better for your overall well-being and your health? So it's pretty interesting conversation. It is those two halves for those of you who are just interested in like, hey, what's the product and how do I use it, versus you want to understand because you're new to this, and I think that first half would be really, really helpful for you. Overall, we had a great discussion. I mean, I just never ran out of questions in talking with Philipp about this new product and just the overall concept of the quantum energy industry, or the space. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the interview. And again, I just want to say thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your time and your interest in these videos and in the content that I provide. And especially thank you, Philipp, for your time this morning. I really enjoyed our conversation. So aloha, thank you very much, and here's the interview. Aloha everyone, and welcome to another video. I am your host, Kay Elmer, and I have the wonderful opportunity to have Philipp von Holtzendorf with me, who is the owner-operator of Leela Quantum Tech. This is our fourth interview that we've had because I've been covering the launch of his new product line and his new business. He's also one of our dearly beloved C60 characters who's been with us for a long time. But he started a new business last year, and I've been just kind of following him, and I wanted to share some more developments. Now, Philipp, welcome. And let's just kind of show everybody, who we're talking to. This is Philipp von Holtzendorf. Philipp, did you want to kind of introduce yourself from the Leela Quantum Tech perspective?
Yes, thank you for having me. Okay, I'm looking forward to the interview. And yeah, most people probably know a little bit about my background, so I'll be very brief today. So I'm from Germany originally, live in the U.S. with my family, and have a few business ventures that are all geared towards providing something new, absolutely cutting edge, that's helpful to humanity. And it sounds pretty big, but obviously something big can be also small and starts also small. And we're here talking about Leela Quantum Tech. Leela Quantum Tech works with its own technology to charge various products with various frequencies that are very helpful for humans or for animals or for plants, or with different kinds of frequencies that we actually have developed together with a healer network, with some healers that are extremely special and well known and well regarded all over the world, and also with quantum energy. So yeah, and they're different purposes for these products. You can use them in various ways. In general, they promote health, they provide energy. They help to tap in more into who we truly are. And yeah, that in a nutshell is kind of what we do. It's very exciting, and looking forward to talking a little bit about the new product that we offer now, which is not really a new product. It's just now it's finally available
Okay.
to offer.
All right. So just to kind of paraphrase, Leela Quantum Tech is your new venture. You also have a business with C60 products, but your Leela Quantum Tech is an energy product that supports the human biofield, basically, and in some ways attenuates with it, which is we'll get into that. But you're not just a one person coming up with your own ideas. Like I was showing while you were talking, there's this actual healer network. And so these healers are all people around the world that have come together and kind of worked together to put together the ideas behind the products and the frequencies that you've come up with, the products you've come up with. So you've got all these different people. And so it's a consortium of energy workers, right? Would that be how
Yes.
you describe it? And people that are in the wellness and health community that have been doing it for decades. I mean, what would you say are the combined number of years of experience of people working for wellness and healing of other people around the world is probably over 100 years of experience right here. So that's all together has come together to form Leela Q and the products that you've come up with. So I just kind of wanted to point that out for anyone that's new to Leela Q, that it's very, very special. One of the things too, I also want to kind of point out, Leela Q is at LeelaQ.com, and Philip's the owner operator, and we've done 3 other videos, so I'll link them in the video description below for people who'd like more information. We did one interview right when the Leela Q was launched, so it kind of discusses the background behind the products. And there was one video that I really highly recommend, which is the test results of all of the different products. They were tested third party, 2 different institutions, and we walked through the different test results. And so this is what's really quite unique, was that I personally have been involved in energy products as well as bioelectrical magnetics and C60 for quite a long time. And so I own a whole bunch of different little things like purple plates and tensor coils, and I did orgonite for a long while, and all of those kinds of things to kind of like explore the concept of energy. And I got to say that for me personally, this is one of the most amazing devices or product lines that come out, because I have quite a few, and it really approaches it from a different standpoint. So I kind of am really amazed by this, and I just suggest that anyone that has any interest at all, just spend some time on it. But what's most important, though, the point I want to make is that when we went through the test results, it's so far out there that I've looked at. It's the only real quantum energy type of product that actually has test results. Like you look at some of these other results, they'll just, and I don't want to single anybody out, but they don't have test results. They haven't third party, somebody else tests these things and says, hey, what does it do to the human biofield? What does it do to the bioenergetics of a person? What does it do to their heart rate variability when you have it and you don't have it? And the results were amazing. So I do highly recommend anyone that's interested in the science or the actual, like, what really happens, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are so adamantly interested in, like, okay, what does it really, really do? Well, what does it really, really do? Go take a look at that video about the test results. And then the other third video that we did was about the different frequencies that Leela offers. So a lot of background on that, and it's all there. I'll have the links there in the below. But so today, though, today's special because Philip, you've launched a new product now, and we're going to talk about that. And so that product is called the Leela Quantum Block, and that's what it looks like. So how would you describe this new product that you've got? I mean, like, what is it and what does it do?
Yeah, so the Leela Quantum Block is basically the underlying technology that we use in order to charge the products, and we're now also making it available. So one of the reasons why we couldn't start 2 months ago is because we certainly worked on making it look not just energetically fit, right? That was what we already have had for quite some time, but it needed to look great. We wanted to make it look in a way that it fits pretty much in everyone's home as a beautiful device, not just energy wise, but that it also looks nice, that it's very functional, that's not too big, not too small, and all of that. And obviously, if you then offer it, each one needs to look like the other one. And that's kind of what we have done. And now we're finally ready. We put information on the website. And what it is, it's basically a tool and a technology that provides a concentrated quantum energy space right in between those two plates that people can see now. Right, so in there's a concentrated quantum energy space. It's not just a quantum energy field; it's truly a space because it's fully multidimensional, and it works completely without any electricity or without any magnets, both of which are actually limiting and disturbing to a quantum energy space. So that being said, what can you do with it? So first of all, you can just put it in your home, and just by not putting anything in or doing anything with it, it already does a whole lot for you at home. It's sort of like an energetic feng shui that it does automatically. So it provides a very nice and harmonious energy field. It's important also, the harmonious part, because it actually interacts extremely well with the human cells and the human energy system, certainly also with animals and all that. But it's extremely harmonious. That's one of the things that people say about it. And it has a radius of about 40 meters, 40 to 45 meters, I think in feet, that's maybe around 130, 145 feet, I think. And it not only is this energetic feng shui, it optimizes and harmonizes EMF, which we all have in our homes, obviously through Wi-Fi, microwaves, or now 5G and all of that. And you mentioned the study. So we've also done a study for the quantum block specifically. Unfortunately, it's not up on the website yet because we're still waiting to get the results back in writing, but we have them verbally already. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing, some of the tests that have been done and how quickly it really promotes health and well-being, frankly, for anyone in the home. So we tested a specific home where there was a couple, they had a cat and they had a rabbit, and all of those people, including the rabbit and the cat, and all of them were tested beforehand, and they were tested after the quantum block was in the home. And they were actually also tested once the quantum block was taken out of the home again. And the results are really fantastic. We've done other tests. I'm not going to go too much into them because we maybe want to talk about those results more once we have them also in writing and can refer to them. But I want to point out one thing. So that was actually the Testing Institute had the impulse to analyze snow. So they had gotten a lot of snow recently, and then they were like, well, we know about chemtrails, and we know about other things that are really not that good for the environment. And so they analyzed the snow, and they found all this bad stuff in it, aluminum and zinc and all that kind of stuff. And then they put the snow in the quantum block, and after that, all those harmful frequencies were gone and neutralized. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, I stop here. That's how I would explain it. It's very hard to explain with words some of the things it does, because it's truly incredible. It's not earthbound at all. It doesn't interact on the magnetic side, and yeah, it's that's how I can explain it with words.
Sure. Well, I want to point out a couple of things. Is that if you go to LeelaQ site and you click on this little menu, one of the things that you'll see right here is research studies and certificates. So for those of you folks who really want to look at the science, and the science that Philip's describing is essentially bioenergetics and heart rate variability, and these are like, you know, known methodologies by which you measure a person's response to an external stimuli. So what really is being described here is measuring a person without a a stimulus, whether it's EMF or a toxin or whatever, and then measuring their biological responses to that stimulus before and after. So you're saying, Philip, that just by taking this device and putting it in someone's home, that the person and all the different living beings in that home actually have a positive biological response as opposed to without it, right? I mean, they would say
Absolutely.
they're a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. 10's good. I'm just making that up, but just as an example. And you put this thing in, that they're actually going to get better, that it actually promotes wellness, right?
Absolutely, wellness, and it actually
it.
also in the at least where we tested it, it also helped with better sleep and rest.
Oh, okay.
Because one thing to say about this is it's not an artificial energy pusher, if you will. It is really harmonious, so it really adapts extremely well with your bioenergetic field or the one of a cat or dog, rabbit, whatever. And yeah, so that's also why, you know, it has a lot of concentrated quantum energy, right? It has a lot more quantum energy concentrated in there than any other device on the market, by far and large, frankly.
Yeah.
And you know, people may think, okay, well, if it's so strong, so, you know, how can I then deal with it? Do I have to adapt to it? Am I going to be thrown out of balance? And no, that's actually not the case, because it is so harmonious that even if you live in a home and you've had your quantum block around for 2-3 weeks and all that, now you have suddenly a visitor come over that has never heard anything about energy work or has never been close to quantum energy or anything. It's just a random normal person. He will not have any, that visitor will not have any issues whatsoever with energy of the quantum block. Frankly, the opposite will be the case. They'll also feel this harmony. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Okay. I think that the thing for folks that are new or have not heard of these types of devices is, here's the concept. I know that it looks like 2 metal plates and 4 rods. That's what it looks like. But that the metal, the object that itself has been charged with an energy. And I guess for those of you who are into the science aspect of it, you know, you might be familiar with the studies and experiments that have been done with consciousness, that scientists have now proven that there is an actual energy being measured in when people are concentrating, and it's what they're calling conscious energy. There's also the idea of scalar energy, right? There's also the idea of quantum energy at the quantum space, right? So there's all these different words for energy that is not something you can pick up magnetically or electrically. And so that's what this is. This is an energy force that is known to science but never quantified. There's no meter for it except the human body. You can actually measure the effect of the energy, but not the energy itself. Is that safe to say, Philip? Because it's hard.
Yes, I think that.
Yeah.
That's a great explanation, and I want to add to that something that you wouldn't find in a book if you read about this type of energy. But if you now imagine that you close your eyes and you tap into your own energy field, and then you try to expand out and you kind of connect, like if, for example, in a deep meditation, right? And then you kind of feel the energy around you, and you can almost call that in and almost inhale more of it, right? So that's that type of energy, and that's the closest I think I can provide right now as form of a picture that you can sense that, and not artificial at all.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's. So I've struggled to try to figure out how to explain this to folks that are kind of like more leaning towards the academia type of approach to how things are, and the whole rule of if you can't measure it, right? There's that rule in science. But this is something that you can measure, and I think you can measure it if you look at it from the standpoint of what's the effect of it, as opposed to measuring it directly. And it is very hard to wrap your head around. I mean, it took me a while, even though I've been dabbling in this kind of stuff for quite a long time. Like what is this what is this energy? And so that's kind of what I want to point out, because it looks so simple, but yet it's so powerful. And I'm speaking from personal experience. So okay, so we're talking about this object, as you're calling it the quantum or the Q-Bloc, right? Um, and so and you're saying that this is like this is what you're using in your factory, or your development process. So you're putting raw material into this little cube thing, this little block, and then you just leave it in there, and then you take it out, and it. So what's unique about it, right, is it's not only a energy device, but it also creates other energy devices. That's correct, right?
That is absolutely correct. And, certainly we also use much larger models, for some
Oh,
of the products. It's, it's hard if you want to charge 100 hoodies, and
yeah.
it's so we do have a
You have a
larger
booth?
model, and
Okay.
uh, then we also have the infinity block. We won't go really much into that, but I at least want to mention that because most of our products are charged in the two-way process, and so they are charged in the quantum block or quantum block type, right? And then they'll get an extra charge in the infinity block. And what that does, I'll explain it at a different time, but it adds um, even more benefits than to the products.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it works. And by the way, so I think what's important to tell people is, you see how big this is. It's actually 8 by 8 by 8 inch, and you could remove actually up to 3 of those rods, and then fit an object in that is a little bit weirdly shaped. As an example, just I wanted to point that out. And then also, what's great with this is you cannot see it here really, but if you were to zoom in the picture, you could see that on the top there are these, I don't even know how you call them. It's interesting. And in German, we call them mothers. And you can unscrew them, and then you can take the upper plate off. And then you can take those 5 meters away, those plates, and you still have a fully functional field in between. So you can easily charge your car with it if you wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole car doesn't fit in, so you would have to do parts, right? But you can take the plates away easily 5 meters, and you'll still have a perfect field in there. And one way to do it is just to uh, put it vertically on the sides. On the floor, for example, that would be one thing, and then you could put any large long object or thick object in between, and then charge it if you want.
Okay.
And do you want me to talk about the charging in general? Because we said, okay, what does it do if it's in the home just sitting there?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wanted to just cover like what is the energy, and I think we've covered that, and then how to know that it's working. I do want to point out a couple of things that Philip has done. Like, and by the way, there's a Telegram chat group called Quantum Power, where we talk about this energy and the products, what they can do, and you got questions about the products. So I'll put the link below. So come on in there if you got any questions at all. Everyone is welcome to join in on the discussion. And one of the things, though, that Philip was kind of just showing us that you could actually do at home is the cut flower experiment. I mean, if you really want to know, like, oh, is this like hocus pocus, or is this real? Then the simplest thing you could do is go to your store, your local grocery store, get some fresh carnations, right? Split the bouquet, put half in one vase and with water and half in the other vase with water, and then charge one of them. And then using one of these, or even using one of the little capsules that Leela Q sells. And you will find out 100% of the time that whatever you charge, the flowers in that vase will last longer than the other ones. It's just like it's somehow this whole conscious energy versus scalar versus quantum versus life force energy. But this energy promotes life. It promotes health and wellness. And you will see what it does to a cut flower. And I think that's the simplest way, right, Philip? For people just to say, hey, is this working, or what does it do?
Yep, now that's definitely one thing for people to
It's the simplest
have something they can watch and look at. Really, what you can also do is just put your hand in it, for example, and feel what it does with your hand. Immediately, you know, the cells will get a boost, and it's pretty fascinating. And you could, you know, sit down in meditation, put your hand in it, and then see if you can get deeper into it. As one example, those are a few things you can do pretty quickly and rapidly to feel.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to kind of point out that, and the other thing that, like, for what I do is, you know, I'm a dowser. I don't know if for those of you who are familiar with dowsing, that is an ancient art, and it has been around for so long with humanity. I don't know, nobody knows when it started, but dowsing is the ability for someone to just tie into energy fields using wire rods or pendulums. Okay, and it's very well established that it works. Anybody who's ever been on a farm and you've seen your grandfather, your father go find where the well is supposed to be dug using dowsing, and also to find negativity and negativity spaces and energy in any type of environment. So when I got a Q-Bloc, and I immediately dowsed it, and it was off the the energy was off the chart coming off of this thing. It was amazing, as opposed to an empty space with nothing around it. So yeah, you could tell by dowsing as well if you're a dowser. Okay, so we talked about the device itself, and you mentioned that this is one of two. So it's the first one that you're releasing, and that there's another one called an infinity block, and we'll talk more about that later. So do you have an idea when that one will be ready for for sale on the website?
Yes, I'm guessing within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, all right, and then we'll cover what the difference is. So now, for anyone who's interested in the Leela Q products, there's charged clothing, EMF clothing. There's charged pet products. There's charged people products and pendants and things like that, where you can wear this and benefit from the different frequencies and the positive energy for yourself. Now, this thing by itself, you're saying that it has a field of about what, 130, 150, or 200 feet, right? Or something like that?
Yes,
so,
about 100, 130, 145 feet. Yeah.
So you bring it into your home and you put it in the middle of your home, and your whole home just resonates with the energy. Now, are there any frequencies built into or put into the Q-Bloc, or is it just like neutral energy?
Neutral. I mean, everything is frequency anyway, so we couldn't say there's no frequency in it, right? Because energy is frequency. But I think from the to explain it to the mind and how we think, it's neutral energy in there, and then it has the capacity to create and recreate any frequency that exists.
So it's like this little energy portal that kind of resonates a field. And it just resonates as energy, and the testing, the third-party testing, has demonstrated that it has a positive effect on living organisms in respects to EMF, dirty electricity, all that stuff. So with that established, now what happens if I put something in it that like has, let's say, just anything, like, a lot of folks are very attuned to Reiki, using different stones and crystals, and the claims of those different types of items having their own frequencies. Or let's say, just putting in a multivitamin, and I want that, the vitamin or the positive benefits of those, of that to permeate through the house. If I just put something inside that, would that then like resonate, the frequency of that item resonate throughout the field?
If you put the intention in, yes. If not, then not. And that's really, so if you just put something in for it to be charged, let's say you put your phone in for that phone to be charged, then that's all it does. If you put in some organic peppermint oil, and you would want that frequency to radiate throughout your whole home, throughout the day or for an hour or whatever. Then you put that intention in it. It sounds crazy, but it's exactly how it works.
Oh, okay.
And then it also radiates, through that field until you take that bottle of the peppermint oil out of the quantum block. And now with charging objects,
Okay.
that just happens. So, and there are different types of objects, obviously, that you can put in. You can put in anything, whether it's groceries or water or beverages or nuts or a phone or a Wi-Fi router, or your shoes for that matter. Maybe starting with the shoes now. So if you want to charge your shoes, because this is a true quantum energy space with a free and dynamic quantum energy in it, which is very important. It is not impacted by magnets. You can, and therefore it's completely dynamic. You can put your shoes in there, and if you have charged your shoes for an hour, the energy will be in your shoes, and you can walk around, run with your shoes even for months, and the energy will still be in there.
So it doesn't drain out. Okay.
That is very unique and very cool. And now some other things you can put in. For example, you can charge your water or your orange juice or a kiwi or any such things. And literally, you don't need to leave anything for longer in there than 1 minute, because after 1 minute it'll be already fully charged. With some of those objects where like the shoes, for example, we recommend 1 hour, but with any such objects that I just mentioned, 1 minute is perfectly fine. And even if you want to charge an aluminum card or something like that, really 1 minute is absolutely enough. And with your phone, again, 1 to 3 minutes for a phone is already enough. However, we've noticed that if you leave it in there for 30 minutes, it actually starts to do something pretty interesting, because the energy is really going into all the network connections, and there'll be even more optimization. But it really would still be okay to just leave it in there for 3 minutes, because it's so fast, it's so immense, the energy in there, that it's just so quick. And frankly, if you want to copy frequencies, right, that's something you can do as well. That literally happens within 30 seconds. We do officially talk about and recommend 1 minute, just to be on the safe side, but it's not needed at all to be in there for any longer than 1 minute, and then it's already done.
Okay. So with regards to frequencies, so if like I was pointing out while you were talking earlier, I wanted to just point out that we did a video about different frequencies, and there's all these different frequencies that are available at the LeelaQ website. So something as simple as like a sleep and rest card, which promotes sleep and rest, right? So if I wanted to kind of like broadcast that in as a term throughout the field, then you're saying I could just put that card inside this quantum block with put in an intention, make an intention consciously that I want this frequency to permeate through the field, and then my whole house will have this it will resonate with the frequency of sleeping and resting, and that's how that would work, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And
Really cool.
also if you want to put the inner peace card in there, for example,
Yeah.
and let's say you had someone is at a home, and you just all had a bad day, and you've been kind of at the edge, and you have kids screaming, and maybe the kids are fighting and all that, and you can put that in, and then there'll just be even more harmony, and inner peace promoted. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Okay, so that's how that would work. And then what you were saying earlier too, in terms of transferring a frequency. So let's say if I put the inner peace, and boy, does my 2-year-old need some inner peace, right? I could make a little pendant for him, right, or her, and I could just put the card in there with the pendant, or whatever the kid likes to wear, right? T-shirt, whatever, and then that would take the frequency from the it would copy it onto the item. Oh, that's and then it only takes a minute.
Yes, it only takes a
Oh,
minute.
okay. So you just put it in there, boom, 60 seconds, take it out, put the thing on the kid, and then over time, the
Yes.
frequency harmonizes. All right. So for you guys with kids, there you go. Okay. No, that's really kind of interesting. So one thing I do want to ask though is, when you make the claim, that let's say, like that's fascinating to hear. I put my cell phone in because obviously it's a really good idea because of its EMF protective type of, or not protective, EMF mitigation, right? From a biological standpoint is the best way to explain it. But if I put my cell phone in there and I kind of want to neutralize the negative energy coming out of it, that it's going to reach out and go out to everything else in the house that it's connected to?
Um, well, yes, pretty much. And so there are all the network waves that,
Oh, okay.
basically end up in the phone, and, through whatever you're doing, whether you're downloading something or you're having a phone call, sending a text message, all these things, right? It's like you can describe them energetically as tiny little wires, right?
Okay.
And that's indeed the case, that if you leave it in there for longer than 2-3 minutes, it starts to even go into all those connections.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, when your healer network kind of put this idea together and kind of, formulated the idea of creating this device, um, how could you explain, like, how do you know that? I mean, how do you like? I know that you have one of your healer networks name is Roman Hoffner, and he's super sensitive from an energy standpoint. But could you describe, like, how do you see what it's doing, or knowing what it's doing? Because we're not talking cut flowers anymore. We're talking about shirts and devices and food and water. How are you able to see that the energy is moving around and frequencies are picking up, and like what's like, how do you see that? I'm just so fascinated that there's these people exist that can see it. But could you describe that? I mean, how do you know that it's happening?
Yeah, so I mean, it's seeing. People say it's always seeing. It's not always seeing for everybody, because there's definitely some healers and clairvoyants that have different ways on how they see, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, for some it's annoying. It's just but we call it seeing. But I think that's first, because it's not really exactly the same for everybody. And then there are different granularity levels on how to see things like that. And so for Roman specifically, first of all, we're working with those healers that are not just like some random healers that just kind of started getting into it, and they heal a little here and heal a little there.
Yeah.
They're extremely well known, and they have all trained lots of healers, in some cases thousands, and way over 10,000 healers. So they have very specific and deep, pure abilities. So with Roman, when he was born, he had he saw all the energies and frequencies all the time, and he would look at a person, at a human, and he had really hard time with the physical seeing. That's what he had to learn, right? That's something we don't have to learn typically, right? When you're born, then
Yeah.
you see all the matter and everything. And for him, it was the other way around. He could see all the energies and frequencies, and the organs, and what the organs would do, and he could look at someone and immediately say, oh, you have a heart problem, or okay, or your tummy ache comes from this, and if you change that, then you change it. And then obviously over time, for him, it was not just that he saw that, he also learned very quickly on how he could move energies and frequencies, isolate them, move them around, add them somewhere so he could fix things, right? I mean, honestly, and that's basically what a true healer would do. And so to best explain how it is for him, and I think that's a picture that everybody can resonate with. If I told you, okay, could you please go into your living room now? I've never been in your living room, but imagine, there's a chair in there, there's maybe a sofa, and then there are a few books or something and some pictures. And hey, could you please grab that white candle, pick it up, and then put it in your kitchen? Then that would be a pretty easy task for you, right? And for Roman, he can see frequencies exactly like you would see all your different books and vases and candles and all that in any room, right? We could tell him, hey, Roman, could you please tell us all the frequencies that are here? And there's a specific vitamin C frequency. Can you please locate that and then take that out and put it somewhere else, for example, or whatever you want? And that's really how it works for him. So
Wow.
I think that maybe, and that's really the seeing. And yeah, so, and then obviously people can, we all have that ability, and so most people have completely forgotten, right, that there is something like energy that we that's what we're made of, and that we have these capabilities. We do. It's just that most people have to really learn that again and train that. The life on Earth isn't really set up anymore in a way where that's what you learn when you're young. Quite frankly, you learn the opposite, right? It's all set up in a way where everything tries to distract you everywhere and limit your abilities to remember your own power and your abilities, right? And that's why we have to put in our work then to get through that. And once we start to remember that, and we kind of think, well, wow, this is cool, because this is really, that's more me. You know what I mean? It's less me to go to McDonald's and eat a Big Mac,
Right.
and do all these other things that are offered on Earth, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I encourage everybody. And so the quantum block, to come back to that, is a device that can actually truly help with that,
Oh.
because it does raise our vibration, and it does so in a super natural and non-artificial way, and also not in a pressuring way at all, where you can raise your own vibration. And people that are on this inner path, that's kind of what they want to do, right? We go meditate, we go do yoga, we do different things, just because we want to get deeper into ourselves, and raise our vibration, and yeah, so that can 100% help with that.
Okay. No, thank you for that explanation. I think if anyone's interested, I mean, really do some research on gifted individuals, indigo children, that kind of thing. There are some human beings on this planet that are extremely exceptional. I believe Roman's one of them. I've had interactions with him before, and it's been pretty amazing. As well as your wife, Crew, she's amazing as well. So the idea here is that's how you can. When Philip is describing it, I just appreciate the explanation. So that's how he knows. That's how this has been determined as like what these things can do, what these Q-Blocs can do. So before we jump in,
and may I really just add real quick, but we know certainly that there's, the world is full of people and there's still some people, and that actually is, that community is growing, that people that know that, right? And people that also are sensitive and they understand all this. But then there's the vast majority still of people that they need to look at science, right? It's just, hey, if a famous healer sees that, well, they don't believe in something like that. So that's why we made the effort to really also look at it from a scientific perspective. And there's a lot more coming out over the next 2-3 weeks, actually, in that regard. But I wanted to point that out, because just knowing that it does all that and that we know all that wasn't enough for us. We wanted to also make sure that we can scientifically prove as much as possible of that.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's kind of why I'm so gravitated towards Leela Q. It's because you've done both. You've actually, using accepted academia methods of measuring biological responses to stimuli, plus, you know, on top of the fact that you're using these gifted individuals and then combining those two things and saying, hey, this is what we're coming up with. It's pretty amazing. And I just kind of wanted to really level set that as a baseline for the understanding of what the Leela Q products are. And then what's really most important about, you know, about this interview is we're talking about the quantum block, and this is a device by itself for like the whole home, and then it also can be used to create other devices. And I think that's what's really important, is that there aren't that many other devices out there on the market that you can buy and create more, like, you know, like basically create more devices. Usually you have to just keep going back to the well and keep buying and buying and buying different pieces if you want to share with family and friends. So, but before we get into like, how do you do that aspect? Like, what's the user instructions, how to create devices? So you touched on something that I'd appreciate if you'd expand on a little bit, but this idea of the energy, kind of like being natural and being like, like, I guess it's like attenuates with the human biofield in a natural way. It's not artificial. I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that, because other products are sort of like, to me, I mean, from what I have experienced, are sort of like brute force. You know, it's kind of like coffee. You know, if I need a pick me up, you know, a 5-hour energy drink or a cup of coffee, but it's artificial because once it wears off, I'm back to where I started. But as I understand, the Q-Bloc and the Leela Q frequencies and energy isn't artificial. It's because you said it's not tied to the earth, right? So it's more like, I mean, you know, for those of you familiar with the phrase source energy, but you know, it's definitely different. It's not the same energy. Is that correct? And then, could you expand on that?
Yes, and so the reason why we don't use any magnets is because of that. So you can find that out there, that there is quantum energy in it. Very one-dimensional though, with only one quantum consciousness level, and up to 9 at most. There will in a device where you have magnets, specifically a lot of magnets, you just won't have more than 9 quantum consciousness levels in there, which is actually fairly weak. And it's then propped up through the magnetic force of the magnets, which is the brute force that you're describing. That's what I'm picking up, is exactly what you're talking about. And that is something that you can notice as energetic pressure, or like a energetic sledgehammer, if you will, and something that can put you out of balance for a while until you adjust to it. You know, meaning that if you have that in your home, and then, you know, you prop that up, you know, have a more brute force, if you will, you still have quantum energy, but you have it combined with the magnetics. It's, first of all, it's not a stable field anymore. Second of all, it's energetically, it's actually an imprisoned quantum energy field. Set differently, it is static, right? It is static in a way where if you were to charge your shoes with it, that energy would be gone after, like, you know, 12 to 24 hours. It's gone, because it's not dynamic. And then it also interacts constantly with the Earth's magnetic field, which also changes and has interactions. So by not using that, we're able to just use pure quantum energy and really increase and maximize that. So that's one of the things, for example, with the infinity block. Then, you know, that radius of an infinity block is 1 kilometer, which is huge, right? And then you'd be like, oh my God, that's there's, and it actually has just the first infinity block has already 600 quantum consciousness levels or perspective levels. There are various ways on how to describe that, which is already a lot more than a quantum block, which already has a lot. And then you'd be wondering, oh my God, how could I take that energetically? Yeah, you can beautifully take that, frankly, just because it's so harmonious and it's so pure. If it were to have brute force with it, yeah, it wouldn't even work. It wouldn't even work that way.
Okay.
I hope that helps a little bit. Again,
Yeah.
some of these things are hard to explain.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been studying this for a long time and I'm still wrapping my head around it. But as you were talking, I was thinking like, so you're saying that like these levels of consciousness, it's like different colors combining together to form a palette of just, as opposed to linear stacking, so that like even like 24 consciousness wouldn't equal 24 times one, but it'd be just a blend of different colors so that it's not overwhelming to the biofield, right? Is that kind of like a good
Yes,
metaphor? Okay, so it's just
yes, and
more colors. So the more colors you have, the more well-rounded, the more, I guess, the more, yeah, I guess yeah, okay. I'm just trying to
and
figure out a metaphor for it, but it just seems to me that it's more colors. I see in my mind when you describe it, I see colors as opposed to every time you add another consciousness, it's another like another step up, and it's just more and more and more and more pressure or more and more energy. It's not that way, but it's more just more harmonious, more in in tune with source. Okay.
yes, and then two other analogies.
Trying
Maybe
to put it.
one analogy is, if you imagine you pick up a rock and you put that on the floor, and then you stand there and then you look at that rock, and you're like, oh wow, this is just, and you're looking at that rock. Now imagine you have 90 people with you that are all standing around the rock, right, in a circle, and they all look at this rock and they're all like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful rock. The energy that's being created in that moment is completely different if just one person looks at it, or if 90 look at it and create that energy. That's one thing. And then if you want to put in an affirmation, for example, in something that has, in a device that has 90 consciousness levels versus one that has one, it's at minimum 90 times more powerful and faster to manifest things. Yeah. So I think with what you said and these two analogies that I just gave, people may develop an understanding of what that means.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get into um, if I were to get a quantum block, which by the way, I have one, everybody, and just wanted to kind of show you. It's kind of like my proud baby. This is what it looks like when the stork delivers your quantum block for you. It arrives in a box, and and it's all packed up very nicely. And then when you unpack your quantum block, then this is what it looks like. And honestly, Philip, good, kudos to you. It looks like a piece of art, and it's just beautiful. But so yeah, it's very easy to put together, and it's not hard at all to assemble, and that's what it looks like. And so let's talk about how do you use it, and so and then what else does it do. So let's just say, because in my house, like I'd mentioned earlier, I have I kind of tinkered around, and I've got one of those tachyon discs, those purple disc plastic things from the tachyon. I forgot his name. And then there's the purple plates, and I've got I've got these other devices in my home. So how does this energy interact with other devices that you have in your home from other people that have created these types of devices? I mean, what happens when the Q-Bloc comes into your house and it itself is I mean, I just because it's very unique, and then you got these other things, and like people who have crystals in their homes, right? A lot of people have crystals. So what happens to those other objects, and how do they interact with the Q-Bloc? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the quantum block doesn't have any negative interaction with any other energy devices or anything like crystals. The opposite is the case. If there is something that is disharmonious, or where there's something with brute force or something like that, the quantum block immediately becomes the boss in quotation marks, right? Because it's not really boss as we think of it typically, but it's the um, the one that holds the energy in its hand, if you will, right? So it's providing the main guidance, and if there's anything with disharmony or with brute force, it's actually leveling that out. And it doesn't, so it provides a very, very nice field overall. It does not impact crystals or the energy of the crystals in any negative way whatsoever. And frankly, if you wanted to, if you're like a crystal healer or you love crystals just for the beauty of it, you can optimize, the energy level of your crystals actually with the quantum block. For that, you would just put the crystal in, and not more than 3 minutes. We've tested that. 1 to 3 minutes is absolutely enough for that, and it'll then, what it does, it brings out the core primal power of that individual rock, right? So it doesn't do anything artificial with it. It's the potential of a rock, right, is fully being reactivated, if you will.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So I could take anything else from someplace else, like, purple plate or something, and if I put it inside the Q-Bloc, well, first of all, if I have a purple plate in my house and I got a Q-Bloc in my house, there's really no interaction other than the Q-Bloc being a more, I guess a stronger device, or a neutral device is going to kind of take precedent, I guess, over the energy coming off of a purple plate, right? Is that kind of how?
Yes.
So, okay. And then,
right.
But if I wanted to take the purple plate and enhance it, I put it in the Q-Bloc, and then I get even more out of the purple plate. Would that be kind of a way to look at it?
Exactly. You can literally enhance anything you put in there.
Okay. I was reading your website here, and in your website, somewhere in here, it says, the time frame. So 1 minute, if I want to transfer a frequency. Is it 3 minutes tops if I just want to charge something up? What if what if I forget it and I leave it in there overnight or something? Are there any cautions or?
Well, and not really cautions. I'll get into the cautions maybe also, but if let's take a kiwi for example.
Sure.
If you leave that in, it may not. If you leave it in there overnight, it may just be overripe. As an example, right? I mean, it's just those types of things. We have with the quantum block, it's not really an issue if you leave things in there for too long. The infinity block is so strong that if you leave certain things in there for too long, it's going to be permanently or temporarily connected to that quantum space of the infinity block, even if you take it out for a day or two. So there are a few more precautions. I mean, that's not really it's nothing bad, right? It's just something to be aware of. And with a quantum block, you don't have that. It's just some of these things. It's going to be too much for the kiwi, right? At some point. But yeah, you can still leave stuff in there overnight if you have a titanium sphere and you leave that in there by accident, then that's okay. It won't do anything with it anymore. It's just fully charged so rapidly.
So after 3 minutes, you're it's kind of like topped off, and that's it. So, and it's not going to get right. It's not going to get
strong. With certain materials, we say leave it in there. Like the shoes, for example, if you want to have the energy in there permanently, that's a different thing with shoes. For 1 hour.
Okay.
And
does that apply to all clothing materials and like sheets, and if you want to put pillows in there, and is that so 1 hour for organic soft stuff and more like 3 minutes for more denser metal type of objects, plastics?
It's no, for fabrics in general, I would say 30 minutes. Okay. But already after 3 minutes, it's already there's just one other level added, basically between the minute 3 and minute 30 if you put fabrics in there, and that has to do with permanency. That's how I would describe it, but it's not that you further optimize it.
Okay, so shoes 1 hour, fabrics 30 minutes, metals, plastics 3 minutes, food 1 minute. right? And food, in the area of food, would be like if you wanted to put pharmaceuticals and supplements as well, 1 minute.
Yes, and so with what's interesting to note for pharmaceuticals, for example, I mean you can copy the frequency of a pharmaceutical, for example, and then leverage it, in a frequency way. Now, you could what happens at the same time is that the pharmaceutical, let's say you put an ibuprofen in, right? Within this 1 minute, the negative slash harmful frequencies of the ibuprofen, that are harmful for the body, right? That's important to say, because we can't really determine what's
Yeah.
negative, what's positive, but what's really harmful for the body and destructive in a way, that is being neutralized. And then what's also happening is that homeopathic levels are added to this ibuprofen in this example. And you could leave in the ibuprofen for way longer. The drug never mutates, right? That's very important to note. That is very different if you had a device that uses brute force, magnets, because then indeed you can see mutations. That's not what's happening here. However, we recommend to never leave any pharmaceutical in there for more than um, 1 to 2 minutes, frankly. And I wouldn't do more than a minute, but you can do 2 minutes also if you want. But the longer you leave it in, the higher the potency of the homeopathic level gets. And you can also at some point really call it the quantum level. The way that homeopathy works, you cannot say that a frequency made with quantum energy on the quantum level is 10 times or even X times stronger than homeopathy. That's BS, frankly, because that's not how it works. Because homeopathy, in and of itself, can be already 1,000 times stronger and more potent than the same substance on a different homeopathic level, right? So now with the quantum block, though, you can enhance that to levels that are incredible and incredibly potent. So that's just something where we recommend 1 to 2 minutes at most, and then I think after that it will be really um, it may just be too strong, right? I mean, some people may want to test that, but I wouldn't.
Okay. Okay. How about water? Like if I wanted to structure, charge water to drink, give my pets, water my plants, um, just by itself, I put a glass of water in there. Like, is that 1 minute as well, or
Yes, 1 to 3 minutes.
1 to 3 minutes? And then if I wanted to impart a frequency onto the water, let's say I want to add, like I want to water my plants, so I put in I put a sample of plant food, and a glass of water, right, in the Q-Bloc. Is it 1 to 3 minutes? Take them both out, and that water now has the frequency of the plant food, and I can give that to my plants, right?
Exactly. The
Oh,
frequency will already be in the water already after 30 seconds.
uh,
And then water absorbs it like super quickly. It may even be 10 seconds only in the quantum block, but just be on the safe side, 30 to 60 seconds, and then you're good to go.
geez, Philip, I just realized something. I've been trying to get my dogs to take vitamins, and they hate me for it, right? I just realized right now, I was like, oh my God, I should have been doing this all along. Yeah, I just got to put. Okay, I've got the dog bite. I'll just put it in their water. Oh crap! Because I don't know if I told you. I already I made like ball chain necklaces for them with the dog, heel for dog frequency, and I could
Yep.
tell you, I mean, ever since I gave them those ball chain necklaces with that frequency on it, because they're so small that they look weird when you put a collar on them. So I
Yep.
just gave them these little ball chains and with the frequency, and yeah, it's like my older dog now. Literally, I watch him and he plays more often. It's like he never used to really play at night because he's old, right? He's like me, but now he's like playing with the puppy more in the evening. So I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. But okay, all right, I just got to, So if you want to give your pets vitamins, put it in their water as a frequency. There you go. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and what you can do is you could take a bowl and then charge it in the
Yeah, that's what I'm doing this
Quantum
morning.
block
Yeah,
with those vitamins, and then make sure those are vitamins. I mean, you know that, but I'm this for the listeners. Those are vitamins that would be good for the dog, right?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
humans and dogs need different things, and yeah, and then maybe what I would do if you had that bowl, that would be your vitamin water bowl, if you will, right? And also maybe have another bowl also where there are no vitamins in it. Not that there's, you can just do two different things.
Right. Okay, here's an idea. I'm sorry to go off on a sidetrack, everybody, but I'm just, I've been trying to help my dog. My older dog has joint problems, and so he needs to take a joint supplement, which he also hates to take, and I have to fight with him. So is it possible? I mean, from your perspective, if I put his food into the Q-Bloc, right, with a piece of his joint supplement, right? Because he refuses to eat it and he just spits it out, and we have these big fights all the time with each other. But can I charge his food, with the frequency of the joint supplement? Would the food pick it up so that he's getting
Yes.
like the frequency of his? Because I don't want the puppy, because she's so little and young, she doesn't need joint supplements. So I could give him the frequency of joint supplements through his food, and then I could give him both the frequency of dog vitamins just through their water. So I could do that, right? I mean, and it
You
really
can
takes like,
absolutely do that.
oh
I
yeah,
would
okay,
I
that's
would still
great.
monitor that
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
joint supplement, because there's, even with humans, it's there's some people that, if they do that just on the frequency basis, right? Whether it's a pharmaceutical, for example, it works to some extent. To some in some cases, it
Right,
works completely. You don't need anything else. And then with vitamins in a frequency way, for some people that's absolutely
right,
sufficient. And then for other people, they still need the physical. But what it does then, if they also take the physical, it becomes much more bioavailable that way. That's wrongly phrased in a way. It's more that the cells can absorb it way better and leverage it way better. So you get a whole lot more out of it. So those are the different ways, and that's why I would just monitor it. So I
okay,
would not officially recommend here, if you have a medicine for your dog, and the dog doesn't want to take it, then it's an important medicine to just provide it as a frequency that may work or it may not work.
right.
It
Okay,
would need
good
to be
point.
monitored.
So you don't just stop giving him the actual physical supplement, but you'd see it's just a additional enhancement or a support, right? That you're giving it two ways instead of one way.
Yeah,
Okay, no,
so
that's a
that's
good
where
point.
Roman would come in handy, as an example, because these are things that would need to be checked then on an individual level. Like
Oh
if
yeah,
you had a specific medicine for a dog or so, and then he could check, hey, is the frequency actually doing the same thing? Is this enough for the dog, or would there need to be anything else? So
okay. Oh, good to know. Okay, okay, so that's real interesting. So definitely you can charge and transfer frequencies of supplements, food, water. That's really interesting. Just going down the list here, I'm just kind of looking. This is the website, folks. So obviously a lot more detail if you read the web page. Now, when will this be available to the public? Because I know I'm looking at a preview. This
it
page here on the Quantum Block. Is
it is currently available
It's
to the
live now?
public.
Okay, okay, great. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So anyone interested, you can kind of go through this and read. We just talked about homeopathy. Let's talk about sound, capturing sound using a Q-Bloc. So, I'm sure people are familiar with the work of Sherry Edwards and the Q-Wave technology out there, taking sound and turning that into a health and wellness audio frequency for your biofield. But there's a way to capture sound, right? And put that into an object or even into a glass of water and then drinking the water, right? I mean, so you can use the Q-Bloc for that. And how would you go about doing that?
Yep, that's easily done, frankly. So all you do is you play the music to a glass of water, and then you put the glass of water into the quantum block. I mean, and you can transfer the frequency, the sound frequency would then be in the water, and then you can transfer it from there into, let's say, a card or anything else where you want it in, and then leverage it that way. The only thing, that's where I also would say caution, is that what most people don't know is that well, any frequency somewhat is also you can perceive it as a sound in a way. The specific sound frequencies are different in that regard, and if you have them charged on a card, for example, you don't physically hear it, but it still can create an imbalance over time, because we have our own sound. The body has its own sound, and so that's also why, if you leverage sound frequencies and you really listen to them, you wouldn't do that all day, right? You do that for a short period of time typically, and that's how I would leverage those cards as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. Let me expand on that. I mean, for those of you who are familiar with the work of Sherry Edwards, she's done incredible work capturing the audio of. It's just like, it's really hard to explain, but she's captured the frequency of audio sounds and how they interact with different conscious states, depression and so forth. And then she creates these soundtracks working with musicians, in which when you listen to the music, you're getting you're getting the frequencies and the energy, or not the energy, but the frequencies and the sound to stimulate your brain. Or there's one for helping you overcome effects of the flu or something like that. But then she herself even says the same thing you just said, Philip, which is, hey, this is sort of like medicinal. You don't want to play it 24 hours a day, because you don't need it. Just you take it as you would if it was a supplement, or you take it as you would if it was medicine, and it's not just all day long, 24 hours a day. So caution. So there's a caution, which is, if you're using sound like one of Sherry Edwards' tracks, and you burn it into, let's say, a pendant because you want that with you, but you shouldn't be wearing that pendant all the time. It should be used as needed, as opposed to subjecting your body to that audio all the time, right?
Yes, and that's how it's different from an inner peace frequency card, for example, because you could literally wear that all the time and it doesn't create any stress. I mean, the opposite is actually the case. At the same time, I just want to mention real quick, even though that's not the topic today, the way it's created with the quantum block is actually this frequency card, that the frequency is available in a way where your system kind of learns how to leverage it better and how to recreate it. It takes different times for different people, and sometimes we want to go back to that, but it's something that you don't. It's not just a substitute or something that you would then always have to use in order to create inner peace. It's rather almost like a little coach in your pocket, if you will, right? Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you also said something, I think that I don't know if we've been talking for a while, but I want to stress something, that it's about the difference between the Q-Bloc and other quantum products out there, is that this thing attenuates, it entrains, and it can literally lift your own frequency. And then even if you take it away, you're still resonating with that frequency, and it's not like that whole coffee crash kind of effect, right? So that, like, as you're saying, this thing kind of, you blend with it, and you pick up those frequencies, but in a harmonious way, right? As opposed to like it's artificial. Would you just, in terms of how it compares with other products, is that a good way to say it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's nothing more to add almost.
Okay. So, like, if I were to use a frequency like the inner peace, and then I eventually, over time, become kind of like, I just kind of absorb it, and it becomes part of my overall frequency. So that even if I take the device away, I still benefit from the frequency, right? So
That is absolutely right, and I
yeah,
think
okay.
what may be a good way for people to understand is, if you work with a healer, or with a shaman, or whatever, you have a certain topic, you have a certain issue or problem in your life or whatever, that you want to talk about, and you want to find a way and how to, you know, get over it or fix it, neutralize it, harmonize it, you know, and all of that, or, you know, get work through a traumatic experience as one example, right? Until you've done it. And so they help you with that. And what do? They do energy work with you. There are lots of different ways on how to do that. They offer different frequencies, right? No healer can heal anybody. It's just everybody can only heal themselves, but the healer would provide the energy fields and the frequencies in a way that healing can actually happen, right?
Yeah.
So now what we try to do is actually, for certain topics, you know, create this little healer for your pocket, if you will, right? Where for certain topics, whether it's the inner peace or, you know, something else, it's something as if you work with a healer. Now, I must say that a live session with someone like Roman on a certain topic, you know, goes above and beyond what a card can do. But it would be extremely difficult and likely very expensive to work on with a healer on a constant basis every day,
Yeah.
24 hours a day, right? That's not feasible at all. And that's where the cards really come in handy, extremely handy.
It's like having Roman in your pocket. Okay. You know, I know we're coming up on an hour, and I want to be sensitive to your time, but I do have a couple more questions if you have some time, because I think this is the amazing. I mean, you know, everything we've talked about is pretty amazing. If you're new to this subject, it's pretty woo woo, but wait till you find out that it's actually real. But then for those of us that are like really into energy kind of work and things like that. That you've been able to take this to a whole nother level. And if you don't mind, I'd like to could I get you to kind of describe how the Q-Bloc works with, you know, your own intentions and affirmations, and then not just like putting it into the field like we described earlier, but also putting it into devices and other living things. Like I could literally put an intention like into my pet, right? Kind of thing. And so can you talk about that? Because the Q-Bloc is very unique in that respect, as I understand it.
Yes, so you can work with an intention or with an affirmation, for example, and then really leverage the super concentrated quantum space in the quantum block in order to bring this or take this into manifestation, and relatively quick manifestation. I want to point out though that there's you know, everybody has his or her own soul plan, and then there's also, you know, something I would call the universal law, right? Which, you know, if you're tuned in, if people that are that's one of the biggest differences between psychopaths and just a regular human being, right? Where the psychopath doesn't really have the ability anymore to really know what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? So
they're soulless, right? We have
and but
that have no soul,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
But you would have that ability, so to know what's kind of right and wrong. And so there's certain things that they're not wrong, they're not right, or that are against the universal law, or against the soul plan. And those things you also can't manifest that with a quantum block, because it's not on the agenda, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But everything that fits into all the possibilities, and those are also by themselves unlimited, into what is possible and can be done in one's life and achieve, right? If it resonates with the universe and with your soul plan, then you can manifest things so much quicker and faster. It's absolutely amazing. And so here's how it works. If just without a quantum block, you can already, go into meditation, and then from within, really, if you have that connection, come up with, so what do you want to do next? What is it that you would like to do or achieve, right? And again, it's something that should really resonate with what's right for you. And if you put just the thought and the intention in there, that's one thing, but you need to create a feeling around it, because otherwise it's almost like a phone without power, right? So you have to have this feeling. So you go into, you're envisioning what you want to achieve. You create a feeling for that. You literally see yourself being that or doing that or having that or whatever it may be. And that by itself already creates so much, because we create our worlds with our thoughts, and we attract what we think. And that's also one of the kind of difficult things for the collective right now, that there's so much fear being created on Earth, that there is so much fear in the field, right? And people that are fearful, they create more of that. So that's not really helpful. So we all want to be clean and pure in what we think. So that's the basic concept. Now you can absolutely magnify that by leveraging the quantum block, because it has 90 of those quantum consciousness levels, which is immense. And if you, for example, write down your affirmation or your intent on a piece of paper, and then you put it in, that's where the extra power comes in. And it comes in then without you adding anything to it. So you can then next minute just forget about that thought and all that, and it's still working its way through into manifestation. And then you could do other things. You could copy the frequency of your affirmation on let's say in a capsule, and then wear that capsule or a pendant or in an aluminum foil, and then have that foil in your capsule or with you, things like that. You could put it in water, even drink the water. I mean, those possibilities are endless and up for tinkering and discovering probably, but it's pretty cool and amazing what's possible there.
That's amazing. Okay, I totally get what you're saying. I'm hoping everyone else followed along. I was just thinking, you could, so if, let's say I want to help my dog heal, right? He has, like knee problems, right? Old guy has knee problems. I could use the Q-Bloc and put in the intention of helping him heal, but I also could put his leg in the Q-Bloc, and we could kind of do like a hands-on healing affirmation and intention using the Q-Bloc to kind of, enhance the experience, right? If I wanted to do hands-on healing on my dog.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I just,
you can absolutely do that. What I want to add though is that if we talk about beings like, dogs and cats and all that, they certainly have their own will as well, and so which wants to be respected, and it will be. So let's say that it's not the dog's plan to have a healed knee, as an example. If that were to be the case,
okay,
and it's really not part of the dog's plan, a higher plan, then that also won't work. But then if that were the case, you could work with the dog and maybe there's just some blockage, frankly, why there's no how do you say that, willingness to heal, if you will, because that may be something you can then solve actually also with a quantum block.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely, you can do that, and you're not stepping over the dog's boundaries in that sense anyway, because the dog will ultimately always, the dog's energy system will have the right, if you will, to say yes or no to these things.
Okay. That's amazing. Definitely going to try that. Yeah, you're giving me so many new ideas, and I just want to kind of caveat to anyone listening that when I talk about healing with hands, I'm not referencing any type of religious ideology in that regard. I'm referring to the fact that I'm someone I'm very much interested in bioelectrical magnetics. And when I'm talking about healing with hands, I'm talking about it from a bioelectrical magnetic standpoint. And if anyone's interested in understanding what I mean, read the book Rainbow in Your Hands by Albert Roy Davis, who's one of the proponents of biomagnetics, and he wrote an amazing book about how our biofields that our bodies generate are magnetic and biomagnetic in nature, and how you could use that energy and heal other beings with your own biofield. And it's called Rainbow in Your Hands by Albert Roy Davis. Okay, so just want to clarify that I'm not a religious person, and so I do everything from a research standpoint. But okay, so we talked about affirmations. I think that's fascinating. I don't really play around with that, but it's really got to be something where you're not going to say, "Oh, I want the ability to fly." You know, like it's just not possible. But you can attenuate your own destiny, right? Or I'm sorry, not attenuate, but enhance or increase it. In that regard. So that's really cool. The other last question is you touched on, I think somewhere in here, I was reading this and somewhere in here, I guess I got to the bottom, but somewhere in here, I think I was reading the draft and it talked about entanglement. And so I'm not sure, I actually did an experiment earlier, I think last year, kind of with the idea of entanglement, but I just kind of wanted to see, what are your thoughts, or what experiments have you done using the Q-Bloc from an entanglement standpoint? For those of you that aren't familiar with the term entanglement, it's the ability to connect two different or two or more consciousness beyond space and time. So it's kind of like two different places on the planet kind of attuning to each other, and they're both feeling and thinking, seeing the same thing at the same time. And it's very scientific and it's out there. Look up quantum entanglement. It works. It's been measured in the lab. But you can use the Q-Bloc for that. So what are your thoughts, and what have you done in terms of experimenting with that?
Yeah, so 100% quantum entanglement with the quantum block works. And we've done lots and lots of tests and actually also study around it. Okay. So as an example, you could put, you take a picture of your shoes and then you put that picture in, and it does not matter where those shoes then are and where the quantum block is, right? As an example, well, let's say you take a picture of your shoes in Costa Rica, and then you leave your shoes there, and then you travel back with the quantum block to I don't know, Hawaii, and then in Hawaii you put the this picture of the shoes in there in the quantum block, and then the energy will charge the shoes even though they're thousands of miles away. And so the interesting part is also that we found that you can actually also permanently charge objects through the distance like that, which is a new finding, and it's pretty immense. It's absolutely possible. And so you could, so if you had a friend somewhere that had some issues, you could literally over distance charge something for them that they can then wear. And it really works like that. I've been asked by people, does there need to be any other information on the picture then? But there really doesn't need to be any target coordinates and all that. That's all like just thinking, just some thoughts. Is totally irrelevant and unnecessary, because the picture has a clear individual signature, if you will, energetic signature, and certainly it would have to be the exact object, right? So if you wanted to charge your shoes, then you would really have to take a picture of your shoes and not like a stock picture of those shoes that are available on the website, because that would not be specific enough.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then we have done other things, like for example, we charged a fabric, and then through that way, and then we actually wanted to not only energetically know that and see that, we actually had BESA test that, and they then a person would be tested, and then the person will be tested again after wearing that fabric. And yeah, 100% the energy was in, and it was working perfectly.
Could you do frequency as well?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, could do that
So
too.
for those of you playing at home, this is quite an amazing announcement. I've been, like I said, studying this for a long time. This is pretty wild. If you do want to do more research into quantum entanglement, um, and the idea of how you could use that in your day-to-day life, then definitely look up the science of radionics. That's another way of describing it. Quantum entanglement also has been, like I did say, it's been proven in the lab that there is actually such a thing. More, the scientific detail is too much for this video. But yeah, radionics, quantum entanglement, that's amazing, Philip, that you could literally, help somebody heal. Let's say somebody that your friends and family living like at a distance, and you could then you kind of like use the Q-Bloc to, and with intention, send them like the frequency of healing supplements and medicines and things like that, or just your intention for them to heal, like get well soon, but like on a energy level, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
pretty
that's
wild. Okay,
you can do that.
Okay, so we're over the 1 hour mark, and I do apologize. I try to keep everything down to an hour. I know everyone's time is so valuable, but before we go, I do want to talk about purchasing instructions, because I know that there's a license agreement, and so I'd like you to chat about that. And then at the same time, though, we're looking at this, and you look right now, you've got it on sale. So I've got a couple of questions about, like if anyone's interested in obtaining a quantum block. Then there's a couple of things, and it's like, well, it's a lot of money to spend. That's the first question. So if you're brand new to this, how would you Philip, what would be your recommendation to someone to, try before you buy, like maybe do a pendant first, or, experience? I think you touched on that earlier, but, what would be your recommendation for someone that's like, wow, that's really a lot of money. I want to try this energy, but, what can I try first before I commit to a larger amount? Question one. Question two is like, this is pretty awesome sale. How long's the sale last? And then my question three is, what are what is the license agreement, and what do I got to know? So maybe if you can just take like question one, how does someone introduce themselves to the Leela Q product, and like before you want to commit to a Q-Bloc, what would you recommend to somebody?
Yeah, I think then in that case, unless someone knows instantly, and if you're like a newcomer, you've never heard about this, and you instantly know, wow, this is what I need, then go ahead, because that's I think with some people, they just know this or they see that. But if you're not that person, then absolutely, like you said, maybe try a frequency card, or the heal capsule, for example, because that's not as much of an investment, but you get to experiment some of that energy already, and and then you'll develop a feeling for that, and I think then you'll be able to make a better decision. That's probably a good way to go about that.
Okay. Yep. Okay, and then the other thing was the sale. I mean, how long's this sale price gonna? I mean, do you have is it a specific sale for right now? And how would it compare to, like, I know that you're not going to launch the Infinity block for a couple of weeks, but like if you're one of the people like myself, I kind of jump into the deep end of the pool because I just want to tinker, and so. But like if people are thinking, hey, this one's on sale right now, but there's another one coming out. Do I want to wait till the other one comes out? Or, could you kind of touch on that? Like from a, like which
Yep.
one should someone get if should they wait for the other one? And how do they know which one to get? Do they want to have both? Could you comment on that?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not a requirement to have one to also get the other. So that's or both, obviously, right? So that's however you want to decide. And in terms of the price, we want to say that the actual value is way higher than the 1,499, way higher if you also compare it to other devices on the market. But at the same time, we always look, okay, what's what's the right price from a universe perspective. And currently, it's tough for a lot of people in the world financially. There's COVID going on still, and all of that, and we don't want to limit this. So that's why we set the price as is. And why is there now a great discount? That's the special launch / COVID support discount, if you
Okay.
will. And I can't say at this point how long this will be available, but we wanted to at least make it available for the first 30 days. So that's as much as I can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then about the like the Infinity, like like I was saying, like how would someone decide which one should I get? I'm just because when I see this, but I know that you've got something even stronger because I'm a guy, right? We want the biggest TV, we want the strongest. We're never satisfied. It's like, oh, there's a bigger one. Let's get. So I mean, is that something that? I mean, from a like, should people be thinking like, hey, wait till you see the Infinity before you make a decision on the Q, or like how? I mean, how would you approach that? I mean, when someone were to say, hey, Philip, which one should I get? What's the answer to that?
Yeah. So if one's focus is truly only on power and range and quantum consciousness levels and manifesting faster and better and all of that, the Infinity block is way stronger even, certainly. And then you can actually also, I mean, there's literally no limit to it, and again, in a completely pure way, right? I want to mention that's very important. There's zero brute force in there, but so with a quantum block, it's a lot easier to do basic charging and to work with frequencies to create your homeopathic or quantum medicine objects, right? To get more harmful effects out of pharmaceuticals, for example. I would not recommend to put a pharmaceutical into an Infinity block and then take it. I mean, even if you put it in for 3-4 seconds, it's just going to be too strong.
Okay.
So this is here. And then additionally, everybody that's sort of new to this or doesn't have any such device, definitely this year I would recommend the quantum block. And it's way stronger than anything out there in terms of pure quantum energy.
Yeah.
So it's already quite advanced, but you can certainly take it energetically. And yeah, that's as much as I can say about the Infinity block.
Okay, cool. As you were talking, I was thinking, like if I were a farmer, or like let's say, like wanted to do an entire nursing home, then getting an Infinity block has got a much bigger field, and you could affect a much larger area and anything in that. So if I were to if I wanted to let's say, energize my field, I would definitely get an Infinity. So there's size matters, I guess. And then anyone who's interested in that kind of stuff, the concept of that is called, there's a quantum field broadcasting, and there's a couple of good websites out there that talk about using quantum technologies with agriculture. So the Infinity block would be perfect for that. Okay, so let me wrap up. So there's a license agreement. So most people buy products. There's usually not a license agreement. So could you explain, why it is and what it is so that people understand? So from a purchasing, let's say somebody wants to tinker and they want to get a quantum block. It's on sale for at least 30 days. You got a great price. But what is the license agreement, and how does the purchasing instructions, how does that work?
Yeah, it's just for personal use. And by the way, so this is the license agreement here.
Okay.
Process. It's not there right now. So if anybody currently wants to purchase, please send an email there to info@LeelaQ.com, and then we'll also send you that very simple and basic agreement, frankly, and it's basically states it's for individual use and not for commercial use. However, we do offer also to use this commercially. So that's something you can inquire about. That's absolutely possible as well.
Okay, so this is if I buy a Q-Bloc and I want to like make items and for friends and family, then that's considered personal use, right? But if I try to sell the items, or let's say I'm a winery and I want to impart quantum energy into my wine and it to enhance the flavor, and stand out from the other competitors, then it would be a commercial license, and they need to talk with you about because they're selling it, right? They're using it to sell stuff.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. If you were jewelry shops, for example, and you
Yeah.
wanted to charge your items, then with that, and they're for sale, then that would also fall under commercial.
Yeah.
As an
Boy, this would be such a really interesting project to kind of get, one of these for a restaurant. Can you imagine if a restaurant were to like charge a plate every time they serve it? That would be interesting to see what would happen with that restaurant.
Yep.
But that would be a commercial license. Okay, so that's it there. So the website's called LeelaQ.com, and now and this is their website, and Philip's website. And then if you were interested in any of the products, you just go down here to learn about products. If you want to purchase, then you click on shop. Learn more about the Healer Network right here. And then again, those test results are right here under research studies and certificates. So, Philip, is there anything else you would like to add before we, and any other thoughts you want to share?
Well, first of all, just thank you again for being so curious about it and asking such great questions. And then the last thing I would add is just for everybody listening, if you're interested in this topic, you're always welcome to reach out to me directly. You can go through the general email, but then you can also do that on Telegram, and maybe join our Quantum Power group on Telegram, which is a very fun group, and we have lots of great things planned actually for 2021. A lot of great interviews and information, and you don't have to engage really. It's just if you just want to listen in and just learn a little bit about the topic or ask questions, frankly, you're absolutely welcome. It's not that there's a bunch of people that just know so much about it and then they don't want anybody else in. The opposite is the case. It's a completely like give and take, and it's just a wonderful community. And so feel free to join if you want, and I'm sure that Kay will have the
I'll put the
link in the description also.
Yeah, for those of you not familiar with Telegram, it's just an online chat group, and it's just comprised of a few hundred folks right now and growing, people that are interested in the topic of quantum energy as well as the Layla products and have questions. And, if you wanted to ask anybody, there's no such thing as like Amazon reviews for this, but that's where you would go. And you can just ask anybody who's like a regular customer, non-affiliated, just like, hey, how does it work for you? And then you're going to get a lot of responses. So it's a good place to ask questions, a good place to kind of meet other people that are interested in this technology and in energy work in general. So, I'll put the link in for the Telegram chat group. Okay, Philip, hang on the line, and I just want to say thank you for your time, everybody, and for listening to this video. Philip, congratulations on your new product. Very excited. Looking forward to tinkering with mine. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
Appreciate your time. So hang on. All right. Thanks, everybody. Aloha.